all familiar with MMA. That's why you've tuned into this channel. But today we're going to talk about some of the more obscure combat sports. Now, there are a lot of these. I'm not going to get to all of them. So if there's any I missed that you'd like to hear me talk about, or if you just wanted to feel like you knew something I didn't, drop it in the comments below. I would love to chat with you about it down there. But for this video, we're going to talk about just a handful of them that I've selected. We're going to go over these. I'm going to talk about kind of what that sport entails from my brief understanding of it, and then whether or not I think it'd be fun to compete in, or if I want nothing to do with that. At the end of this video, maybe drop some of your favorites down in the comments, something maybe you'd want to compete in or something you'd like to watch if you found it more readily available. I'd love to chat with you about that down there as well. But until then, let's go ahead and start with some surface level stuff, and we'll start talking about kind of the slightly obscure, and we'll get down to more obscure towards the bottom of the board. We're going to call this the mildly obscure tier of this little flowchart type thing we're doing here. BKFC, Power Slap. Now, we're not going to get a clip of these because, well, two reasons. One, they're big enough organizations that they will copyright claim me, so can't do that. And two, you're probably at least mildly familiar with these. You've probably seen the highlights of Power Slap when you're watching the UFC broadcast, and BKFC has been around a while now, and they're fairly popular. You at least have heard of them. Guys like Mike Perry have made a career resurgence over there in BKFC, things like that. So when we look at these two, Power Slap and BKFC, now they're not super obscure. Bare knuckle boxing has been around for a long time, but it kind of just disappeared once, good old fashioned regular Western boxing got popular. And it's, because boxing without gloves on, there's, some added risk to that, right? So it's brought back into popularity. BKFC being the front runner in that makes sense. It's exciting. It's popular. Would I want to do it? It does look fun. I've got some friends that compete in BKFC, and it does look fun. I still know that at this stage in my life, it's for me. Now, with any of these sports, there is going to be a number that you could convince me to do it. I just don't know if BKFC is what I want to do at this point in my life. But I do think it's fun. I do think that they, treat the guys that compete there and gals quite a bit better than a lot of, promotions that are outside of, the big MMA and boxing organizations. So good for them. Power Slap. No, I would not do this. There is zero chance I would do this. Like I said, there is a number. But no, I want nothing to do with Power Slap. I don't even want to watch it. But there it is. Either way, let's get to the more obscure stuff as we move on down. Let's move on. You guys heard enough about this. We're going to branch off a bit here, and we get to the very obscure, and maybe not even combat sport, but combat sport adjacent. And we're going to start with lightsaber fighting. Yes, that is exactly what you think it is. Lightsaber fighting looks a bit like this.
Red fighter, purple saber. Oh, I saw red.
So yeah, lightsaber fighting. Would you do this? I would do this. In fact, it's not really fighting. It's kind of like more like fencing, I would say. And I think it sounds fun. I would do that for free. It sounds like a great time. You're using a plastic lightsaber. No harm in this, but just good old-fashioned fun time. So I like that. So next, pillow fighting. Now, this is another one that is going to be adjacent to combat sports because, yes, you are hitting people with pillows, but it's not the way you think. It's not like the thumbnail of this video suggests. You're not standing there with a good old-fashioned bed pillow.
See, that's maybe the difference. Apollo might take this home.
360.
Locked again now. If you hit the three.
So I guess that is what cuts it for pillow fighting these days. Would I do that? Sure. That sounds like a fun time. It's like a weekend activity. No big deal. I think it'd be good. So yeah, I would do some pillow fighting. Wouldn't even need to pay me. So the combat sports adjacent section here, those are just a fun weekend activity you can do with your buddies. But let's get back into the more actual combat sports style of stuff, and we'll kind of make our way back on this side of our flow chart. All right, so as you see, we moved all the way to the other side of the board now, because instead of being the adjacent to combat sports, now we just get the more confined version of an actual combat sport. So what do we have here? On the confined version of actual combat sports, we have phone booth boxing, which is just like it sounds. It's a couple of folks fighting in a phone booth, but boxing gloves and all that good stuff. You can see it right here. Would I do phone booth boxing? Absolutely not. That's worse than regular boxing. I would rather actually box than do phone booth boxing. That just seems like a bad idea. So count me out. Not doing that. But card jitsu. Now, card jitsu, it's also exactly like you think it's going to be. Have a look here.
Times I doubt he's going to panic, but the Mexicutioner finding himself
There we
in
go.
it. Oh, look at this, Mark. The Mexicutioner's going for a...
Okay, that's weird. But would I do it? Yeah, I'd try it. That sounds like it sounds like a less fun kind of jiu-jitsu, but I already do jiu-jitsu regularly. Would I do that in a car? Sure. And you can actually use the seatbelt as a weapon from my understanding, so, not to like hit him with, but to strangle him with. So that actually could be a pretty sweet idea. Count me in for card jitsu. What do you guys think? Would you do card jitsu? Would you be a phone booth boxer? If you do both, you're a wild one. All right, and I admire your courage. We've made our way back to the center of the board. Now, this is good for a couple of reasons. One, because it gets us back towards a somewhat more normal, but yet still obscure style of combat sport. So it gets us to like more familiar stuff, more familiarity, but yet is still obscure. We have Team MMA. Yeah, you heard that right. Both of these are actually team-based. We're going to get to that in a minute, but Team MMA is typically like a 5-on-5. Apparently they do more at times, but typically it's 5-on-5 MMA, which, as you can assume, is absolute chaos. From my understanding, there's still only one referee. Doesn't sound like the best idea, considering the referees already can't catch anything when they're, just doing with two fighters in there. But now they got 10 to deal with. So Team MMA. Does it sound like a bad idea? Sure. Would I do it? I'm more likely to do that than I am BKFC. So we'll say maybe. I could be swayed. But if you're wondering what Team MMA kind of looks like, it's like this. All right, so if you thought Team MMA was exciting, what about arena combat? Now, what is this? This is essentially Team MMA, but only teams of 2, and there's obstacles. So it's basically like a bunch of foam style obstacles, almost like a kid's play place, but you're trying to beat each other up and you're in teams of 2. And from my understanding, there's multiple teams of 2, not just 2 versus 2, but there can be 2 versus 2, but it could be more. Seems crazy, but you're wearing like headgear and stuff like that too, so it's a little less dangerous, I guess. And you got these cool little it just seems like what you do with your buddies, like once you're like kind of at the age as a kid where you're like, you're not quite young enough to play on the play place, but yet you still kind of end up going there somehow type of thing. And then your buddies and you end up just like turning into like a place to fight. That's what arena combat seems like to me. Would I do it? Absolutely. That sounds like a great time. Let me know what you guys think in the comments. Would you do arena combat? I think it sounds cool. Oh, and if you were wondering what it looks like, it's right here. Before we get into the final category, which is basically our more violent versions of combat sports, the more brutal versions, do me a favor, if you're enjoying yourself, just having a good time on this off week from the UFC, or maybe you're watching this later, hit the like button for me. I appreciate it very much. It goes a long way, especially on these videos that probably aren't going to do super well because it's really wild content that's not normally on my channel. So let's talk about these. We have the more brutal versions of mixed martial arts, essentially. Now we have shock MMA and armor MMA. Now let's start with shock MMA, okay? I haven't seen much of this. It doesn't seem like it's super widely available, but it's been around a while. The footage I did find was kind of old, but it's apparently MMA with just tasers. Like, and you got them like taped to your hands or whatever. It's crazy. It's crazy talk. No, count me out on that. But if you wonder what it looks like, yeah, that sounds awful. I feel like most of the time somebody pees themselves. I don't want to do that, especially not on camera. That would be worse than getting beat up, probably. I mean, that's super embarrassing. So I don't want to do that. And when you're getting tased, sometimes it happens. But armor MMA. Now, this is the one I'm most excited about on this entire board, which is why we're covering it last. If you don't know what it is, it's just kind of what you're probably thinking. A bunch of medieval-looking knights duking it out, kind of like at a Renaissance fair, but apparently they're actually trying to hurt each other, not just doing like a choreographed dance that you see at the typical Renaissance fair. It looks like this. Now that looks like a banging good time. Am I right? That looks great. Count me in for that. I 100% would do that. And that doesn't make any sense. You're like, dude, you didn't want to do bare knuckle boxing because that sounds like it's different, guys. This sounds great. This sounds awesome. I totally want to do that. And I remember story time real quick. When I was young, well, not that young. I was like, I don't know, probably, I was young. I was like 19, 20 years old. But we used to have like machete fights in my buddy's driveway. You probably can't see it on camera, but I still got a scar on that finger there from when I was trying to go left-handed with the machete. Because I'm typically a righty, but hit my finger pretty good. It was a deep gash. But machete fights is what we did for a good time. The hand injuries were the worst, though, because you'd hit the blade of the machete, and there's no, like, whatever that thing that goes across is on a sword. You don't have that, so it just slides down and hits your finger like it did to me there. Don't do machete fights. This is not me condoning. That was a stupid idea. You could lose a finger or worse. But Armor MMA just sounds like they can't get your fingers because you probably got metal chainmail gloves. Count me in. Let's go Armor MMA. I would totally do that. That sounds great. But yeah, either way, this stuff was fun. This was a fun video. I appreciate you guys tuning in to some weird content that I don't normally put out. So if you've enjoyed, again, thank you so much. Like the video on your way out. Drop your comments below. What of these weird combat sports would you do? And what did I maybe forget? Thanks, guys. I'll see you soon.